here at Earth Commons Apothecary and Wellness Center that is co-founded by myself and Brandy Joe, who's behind the camera. And at Earth Commons, we're an apothecary and wellness center focused on holism and herbal medicine. Today we're going to be making an herbal cough syrup in the folk medicine tradition. So we're going to make a Loquat syrup for coughs today. And first we'll talk about what a syrup is. So a syrup is a concentrated, delicious remedy, specifically that can be taken for people who can't necessarily have alcohol, like tinctures. It's also a great way to cook juicy things like fruits. And that's one way that we can get it down the hatch, is by boiling it on a stove and turning it into a palatable syrup. So today we're going to be using loquats. These are harvested locally from our trees. We're going to add ginger root, a touch of kava, chili piquin, and the leaves of loquat. So I'll first start out by chopping up our loquats. So we want this video to be timeless and outlast this current COVID crisis that we're in. But because this is our current reality, we wanted to reflect that by wearing proper protection so that we can share this medicine with others. And this is a good technique for getting the seeds out. It's just smushing it. They're very soft when they're ready, and then pushing them out. You can dry these seeds and then replant them about an inch deep in loamy soil, and they should sprout within a few weeks, and you can grow out your new loquat trees. So we pitted and chopped about 4 cups of these fresh loquats, and we have a small amount of boiling, simmering water. We're just gonna go ahead and dump them right in. And we'll keep them on a low simmer to let them cook down. But first, we want to add more water on top and let it boil down. So that's the trick with the syrup. You add a little bit to get it nice and hot, and then you want it to cook down half the amount of volume. So we're using this natural spring water here. And I'm going to add double the amount. Just bring it up a little bit since this water's cooler. Let that cook down. So while our syrup is cooking down, we'll talk a little bit about the uses in botany and growing of this plant. So this loquat is only, I would say, a few months old, and it will get about 3 to 5 feet tall before it starts producing any fruit. So it's definitely a labor of love and well worth the wait. And this is in the Rosaceae family. So another common plant that is used for the respiratory system and coughs is cherry bark. So this plant can be an analog for cherry bark. Another one that is often used is Prunus mexicana, and that one is the Mexican plum tree that you see blooming in early spring here. So this one comes and fruits slowly thereafter, and we can use the leaf and the fruit for our syrup today. Who's this? Frigga. She's our neighborhood watch cat.
I think her name is also Pippin.
Pippin by her owners, Frigga by us. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about the uses of the loquat plant for the respiratory system. So like I mentioned, it's in the Rosaceae family, and the Rosaceae family is wonderful for astringing and bringing out any excess mucus. The loquat fruit and leaf specifically are really great at doing that for our lungs. So they help to expectorate anything that is not productive, and it helps us have a productive cough. So if you ever find yourself with a really painful cough that isn't allowing anything to come up, it might be a sign that you need some herbal help with an expectorant. And the fruit is going to be more moistening, whereas the leaf is going to be more astringent. So that's a really nice duality to have together in your lungs that can both be wet and dry, and they need that help to get brought up together. So now we're going to talk about the other ingredients added to the syrup. This is the leaf of the plant, and the way I like to chop these up is just make a little collection of them here, and you can use sterilized scissors and just chop them like this. I'm going to do that right into the bowl. And as I mentioned before, these are going to be more astringent than the fruits. They're slightly bitter, sour, but the fruits are really delicious. They're sweet, sour, and refreshing. So I'm probably going to do that much, and then this last bunch here. And again, just chopping. You can hear it and see that it's difficult to chop through because these are so thick. So it's really great to boil down fruits and thick leaves, barks, berries, rather than just use them in a tincture or a tea, because they're so thick that they need a little extra oomph with the boiling to get the constituents out. So we have our 4 cups of loquats in here. We're going to add these leaves. Okay, we're going to start adding our next ingredients. These are chili piquins. They might be small, but they're super mighty in spice. So we're only going to use 10. That might seem like not a lot, but trust me, it's still going to be spicy. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to just give them a little crush, not too much. You can really smell that aroma coming off of these fruits. It smells very comforting. Now I'm going to add ginger root. This is dry ginger, and dry ginger is going to be more of a heated, drying effect than fresh ginger, which is going to be a little more cooling and wet. So this is a great dichotomy with the wetness of the fruit. So I'm just going to eyeball this. Again, it's a folk method. And let's see here. Probably going to add, so far I got 1/4 cup in there. We'll add another one. I'll stir it up and see how it looks. And now we're going to add kava root powder. This is going to be really helpful in helping us calm. This is a time where there's a lot of excess stress and anxiety. And not only is it good to help us calm our central nervous system, but it actually really helps calm the lungs as well. And that is what I'm drinking here in my tea. With my gloves and my mask, it feels a little bit like an apocalyptic energy, right? So I let myself calm down by this drink of cherry, kava, cardamom, cacao, and honey that Brandy made me. All right, so I'm going to let this go down a little bit. In terms of the amount of kava, you don't need a lot. So I'll just start with 1 heaping tablespoon. I'm going to do another one for now. Okay. We'll stir this up. As I'm going, I'm pressing the fruits against the side and the bottom of the pot to really get those juices out. And they're just buttery. They're falling apart right next to the edge. The final ingredient we're going to add is this phenyl ACV. ACV stands for apple cider vinegar. And This one has been brewing for a couple of months. Even through my mask, I can smell its aroma. So I'm just going to gently pour it off in here. And normally when you have something like this, we would strain it off, but since it's going to go in a pot where everything will be strained off at the end, that's totally fine, and we're just gonna pour it right in. You know what? I'm gonna use a measuring cup. That's herbal medicine making 101, knowing when to pour something into another smaller vessel so you don't make a big mess. Okay, so I'm gonna start with, we'll do 2. We've got 2 cups of the plant part and the liquid, and we'll pour that right in. So this is smelling amazing. It's got a more complex flavor palette than something like apple cider vinegar, but it does smell similar to mulled vinegar with apples. But because Loquat have this more astringent and nutritive smell to them, it just makes me want to drink it right up. You can tell this color is getting cloudy. That's a great sign that the water is absorbing the nutrients and the constituents from these plants. All right, so now that we're letting the syrup cook, I'm gonna pour off some of this bougie booch by our friend Bill at Wonder Pills. He helped us craft our recipe for our Milky Oats Cola, which was an idea to get mass quantities of oats, a calming plant, into people in a delicious way. So, this is non-alcoholic, it's very fizzy, and it's also a little tricky for me to open. Oh, here we go, there's a tab. All right, so we finished off our kava concoction and we're gonna pour off some of this. It's basically like non-alcoholic champagne that's also really good for your gut. So in an herbal syrup, we want, here you go, Brandy. We want the concoction to boil down to half the amount of water that we started with. And so it probably takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how much you're making. I would say that we should probably check on it in 20 to 30 and see how it's doing from there. So in the meantime, we'll talk a little bit more about the other ingredients and what they're used for. So these in-season loquats, it's the perfect time of year to use those. The chili piquin, again, they're super spicy, and that spice actually has a great use for us. It's pungent, and pungency is really helpful at warming the body up. So if we have any unwanted antibodies or pathogens or viruses in our body that need to come off, we can take something very heating like chili piquin to warm up our respiratory system and our body and help us to sweat off any fever. Loquat leaf, again, we talked about. The phenyl ACV. So apple cider vinegar is a great menstruum or liquid to extract minerals from a plant, and fennel is chock full of them. This one specifically used more of the green parts of the plant and the bulbs, and fennel is delicious in this syrup, but also it's going to be cooling and helpful for specifically if you have upset stomach along with the respiratory issue. So I don't know about y'all, but sometimes if I have a cough or I'm sneezing, sometimes you can get postnasal drip, and then that goes down into your esophagus, into your digestive system, and it can feel kind of wrong in there. So fennel is a great way to help bring that up and calm down the stomach, as well as calm down the lungs and the respiratory system. Ginger, again, has that nice dry heat to it that's going to be helpful in warming our body and getting rid of any excess virus or antibodies that are deep into our lungs. Ginger is one of those plants that goes in any coolness that's deep in our body, it's going to help to pull it out. So ginger is really great specifically at doing that, and a coldness deep in the body could be something like an infection or a non-movement. So if you have mucus deep in your lungs that's just sitting there and over time causing problems, you really need something heating to pull that out. So ginger is great at that. Honey is not only delicious as a sweetener, but it also has antimicrobial and antiviral properties. So that's one of the reasons why we like to use honey as a sweetener in our syrups. Among the former are vinegar and water and alcohol and water. Bay rum may be used, soda, a drachm to half a pint of water, and weak solutions of carbolic acid. So our syrup has cooked down to half the amount of volume that we started with. We started with 96 ounces and we went down to 48, which is exactly half. So it's a nice cloudy color, a brownish gold, and we are adding equal parts of our honey. So about 6 to 7 cups of this honey here to help sweeten and preserve, and then add all that honey power goodness that I was telling you about earlier. So it's important to add the honey while the liquid of the syrup is still hot because it allows the honey to mix in equally. As you stir, you'll start to feel the honey at the bottom. It's quite viscous and thick. And the longer you stir, the lighter it gets, which means that the honey is properly absorbing and mixing into this. So right now it's moving pretty quickly, and I pull up from the bottom and I can see that the honey is evenly distributed. It smells wonderful. Our syrup is now done. Okay, I'm taking a little spoonful to give this the taste test. Take my mask off over here. Oh, it's delicious. Oh, it got a little kick too. That's so good. Yay. Our syrup is now in the fridge, which is where we recommend that you put syrups if they're sweetened with honey. It preserves them longer, otherwise they could have spoilage if you leave them out on the shelf for too long. And there are other ways that you can preserve your syrups, including adding a small amount of alcohol. I really like brandy, it has a nice flavor and it's only 40% alcohol by volume. That's one way you can make it shelf stable. And if you want to make it even more shelf stable without the alcohol, instead of honey, you can use sugar. Brandy and I don't necessarily love using sugar because we have some bodily aversions to it, but it does help preserve for a longer period of time, and you can do a 1-to-1 ratio with that as well. And in Texas, I would still put that right into the refrigerator because here it's moist and hot, and that's breeding grounds for bacteria. But otherwise, you could feel safe in the cooler climate or in the winter with a regular sugar ratio to put that on a shelf. We have other syrups in the shop made by many people, one of them in particular by John Arose, who makes these queen elixirs of Four Queens Apothecary. And they're really cool syrups that are all based on the queens of the tarot deck. And she happens to also teach classes on this particular subject as well. And she does teach them at Earth Commons, so check out our events page on our website. And on our website, you can also find our online shop, membership signups, and classes and practitioners that give consultations. So there's many things that we offer here, and syrups is just one. You will find this syrup that we made today called the cough syrup on our online shop, and it is April 2020, so if you're watching this in the future, we might not have that particular syrup in stock, but we probably have others. So check back whenever you can. Thank you. Tick. It's not a tick.
Oh.
That's different. This isn't funny. This isn't funny. It was actually really serious.